Games for excitable dogs. While playfulness and enthusiasm are fun traits in dogs, some dogs can be prone to overexcitability. If they're not taught boundaries and impulse control, this excitability can lead to unwanted behaviors like jumping, reactivity, mouthing or biting, grabbing and stealing, and other pushy behaviors. It can also be harmful to them both emotionally and physically to feel hyped up and anxious all the time. These games will help teach excitable dogs boundaries when playing, as well as how to settle down and relax so that they can lead happy lives.
Jumping.
Jumping is an impulsive behavior generally caused by overexcitement. By teaching dogs to not jump up on people, we're not only teaching them a more polite and safe way to interact with humans, we're also helping them learn some very important self-control skills. Jumping is an attention-seeking behavior, so in order to not encourage jumping, we need to take our attention away if the dog jumps up. This means no talking, no touching, no eye contact. I like to turn my body away and cross my arms out of reach as opposed to pushing the dog down. I also immediately stop talking. This means no verbal corrections. Even saying no is still attention. Here I am petting and loving on Miss Peachy, but then as soon as she starts jumping up, I turn away and totally ignore her until her feet are back on the ground, and then I only give her attention as long as they stay there.
Loose leash walking.
Pulling on leash creates a lot of tension, which makes dogs more and more excitable. By helping them learn to walk on a slack leash, we're also helping them become more relaxed. I like to start with the red light, green light game, plus rewarding all check-ins. When the dog pulls, red light, you stop walking. When they walk on a slack leash, green light, you walk. Anytime the dog looks your way, mark that check-in with a click or a verbal marker, like yes or good. Then give a treat reward. Don't forget to praise a lot too. It helps to start this game in small areas as to not add too many distractions at once.
So Peach here ran ahead to the end of her leash, so I immediately stopped walking. Then when she turned back to me, I clicked and I rewarded her for checking in after pulling. Then I just continued to reward her for those check-ins, and I walked forward to reward her for her slack leash walking. So Peach doesn't want to go back this way because she thinks she's going to be put back up. So instead of pulling on her and creating more tension, I keep her leash loose and I just trot backwards from her and then click and reward her for every step she takes with me. Walking backwards like this also makes you more interesting and helps keep a distracted dog's attention on you better. Then when they start walking next to you nice and calmly, continue to click and treat them for keeping pace with you.
As you can see here, Baron has no trouble sticking with me or giving me attention. He's a little bit over-exuberant because he really loves food and works really hard for it. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually waiting until he's a little bit calmer before I click and reward him. So that way I can kind of hone in his walking, and instead of just saying, oh, you get a treat for dancing around and jumping at me, you actually get a treat for following along next to me in kind of a heel position.
Of course, the same red light, green light rules still apply. When he went to the end of his leash there, I stopped walking, and when he came back and focused on me, I clicked and rewarded him again. Then we went back to just rewarding him for nice, calmer walking.
And like I mentioned before, it really helps to start with leash walking in a relatively small area so that you're not adding new distractions more and more as you go. Once your dog is walking really politely and nicely with you and you feel like they're doing really well, then you can gradually start expanding out your walking zone. Out into the yard. When you take a dog out into a play yard, you don't have to immediately let them off leash to run wild. It helps to just walk them around on a leash first, let them check things out, like Peach is doing here, sniff around a little bit, and just kind of generally settle into the area instead of thinking as soon as they go out into a fenced area that it's time to run wild. I also like to reward any check-ins like we were doing on our leash walking earlier, and then I usually just kind of walk around with them. It's not, you know, a structured leash walk. It's more about just letting them check things out and go where they want. You can see Peach went over to the left, and so I just kind of went with her and kept that leash slack. And then I'm not going to let her off the leash until I feel like she's nice and calm. If your dog continues to be really excited and you don't think that they would do well if you let them off leash, you can certainly just keep them on leash and continue to walk around with them and let them explore. Peach was doing well here though, so I went ahead and had her sit and unclipped the leash and told her she could go play. Off-leash focus and healing. When a dog is off-leash in a safe fenced area, this is a great time to build some default attention and healing behaviors. This gives the dog the option to explore while also teaching them that it's fun and rewarding to be with you. While the dog is off-leash, simply walk around. If your dog comes up to see you, give them attention and reward with treats. Continue to praise and reward them as long as they walk with you. If they wander off, no big deal. Just keep meandering around and ignore them until they come to join up and walk with you again. You're not calling them to you here. It's their choice to come and walk with you or not. So here we walk out into the yard and Peach checks in with me right away, so I go ahead and give her a treat. I'm marking as she walks around with me with a yes, and then she gets the treat afterwards. I'm also praising and talking to her a lot, and generally just giving her a live attention. She wanders off, and I just kind of meander the opposite direction. I kind of said something to her here just for the sake of the video, but she was welcome to wander around as much as she wanted, and then she keeps getting rewards as long as she follows me. Play manners. Play is an excellent way for dogs to have fun, burn energy, and generally just be happy. It's also when they can get the most bouncy and excited, so it gives us a wonderful opportunity to teach them manners and self-control while also having fun and letting off steam. Before we dive into the play games, here are 2 skills you'll want to make sure your dog knows before starting the games: eye contact and sit. Eye contact. Show the dog a treat and then move it out to the side of your body. Ignore any demanding behavior from your dog like jumping, barking, mouthing, etc. Simply don't give them the treat for any of that, but don't scold them for it either. Quietly wait for them to figure out what does work to earn the treat: eye contact. The moment their eyes meet yours, mark it with a click or a yes and give them a treat. This game teaches them that when they want something, they can give you eye contact in order to say please for it, and that demanding behaviors simply won't work.
Yes, good girl. Yes, oh. Yes, good girl. Yes, good girl.
Sit. Have a treat in your hand and then put it right in front of the dog's nose. Slowly move the treat up over your dog's head and towards their back. Be sure and keep the treat close to the dog's nose like a magnet. As their nose follows the treat up and back, this will cause their butt to go down. When it hits the floor, mark with a click or yes and give them the treat. Once they do this several times with the treat, you can turn this into a hand signal and then later add the verbal cue, sit. Dogs are visual creatures and do very well with hand signals, so don't forget to use that. Good girl. Good girl. Okay, on to the games. Playing tug. Tug-of-war is a great game to bond and have fun with your dog. It can also be a time when they are at their most pushy and impulsive. If they jump up to grab the toy from us, they may also think it's okay to jump up and grab anything else they want, like their leash or our sleeves. To curb potential jumping and grabbing behaviors, we can first have our dog show a little self-restraint by sitting. Then we can teach them that they only get to grab and tug when we give the cue, get it. So we're going to start with Peach sitting. Then I told her get it right before putting that toy right in front of her so that she didn't have to jump up for it. And we're only going to tug for a few seconds before I offer her treats to trade. She did not take me up on that, so what I'm going to do is let go of the toy and put the treats on the ground instead. She has a fun time, and that's perfectly okay. I just want her to know that I'm not going to continue playing and tugging with her if she doesn't let go when I ask. So now she's finding the treats on the ground, and I just pick up the toy while she eats them. And there's no rush. Sniffing the treats off the ground is a nice way to calm back down after tugging. And then she sits before she gets the toy again. Again, I said the words get it before giving her the toy, so that she knows that is the only time she gets to grab something out of my hand is if I say get it. Now she is trading me for treats. And I'm going to start adding in the word drop before offering her a treat. I'm only tugging for a few seconds at a time because I don't want her to get too wild and crazy, or she's going to get too excited and be more likely to jump and just grab the toy from me. So a few seconds of play. Trade for a treat. I told her drop right before giving her that treat, so she realizes when I hear drop, it means I let go and get a treat. Here she jumped up at me, so I put the toy behind my back and just stopped engaging with her until she chose to sit down, which was great. If she did manage to get the toy from me there when she jumped, I would have simply let go, and if she ran around with it and had fun, that's fine, but I want her to know that I will not continue to tug and play with her if she jumps up and grabs it from me. Same there. Then she realized she should sit and she gets to play with the toy and tug, tug, tug. Playing ball. Many dogs enjoy chasing and fetching a ball, but it is a game that can create a lot of excitement. Some dogs have a tendency to get hyper-focused on the ball, which can lead to things like jumping, mouthing, barking/reactivity, or generally not listening to you. I like to practice the eye contact game with the ball because A, it helps your dog remember that you're a part of the game too and not just a disembodied arm throwing a ball, and B, it's a patience game that gives your dog the time to calm themselves down in order to figure out how to make the ball move again. So here I show Peach the ball, then I hold it out to the side. As soon as she looks me in the eye, I say yes, and I reward her by throwing the ball. I turn my body away as she comes back to avoid her jumping on me. This motion encourages her to run past me instead of straight at me full force. I trade her for a treat to get her to drop the ball. If your dog doesn't do this right away, then go ahead and just toss a few treats on the ground, and then you can pick up the ball while they're fighting those. See here, I go ahead and grab the ball while Peach is still eating. That way she doesn't make a mad grab for the ball while I'm reaching for it too.
Who's a good girl? Good girl.
So I turn my body to the side, trade her for a treat, wait for eye contact, and toss. A note on playing ball. Some dogs can become obsessed with playing fetch, to the point of it being an addiction. If your dog seems to want to do nothing besides play fetch all the time, it's really important to only play in somewhat small sessions with the rules we just went over, and then completely put the toy away afterwards. Be sure to work on the other activities in this video too, so that your dog learns to have fun in other ways as well as just relax. Other games. Backward sits. For this game, you're going to trot backwards away from your dog a couple of steps in order to entice them into chasing you. Then you're going to do an exaggerated hand signal to ask them to sit that looks kind of like you're zipping up a zipper. This motion will help catch their attention and move into that sit despite the fact that they're excited. This game teaches your dog to settle themselves down and not jump up on you even after getting all jazzed up. So first I start by just having Peach sit and rewarding her just to get her started. Then I do this trot backwards motion, about 2 steps with my hand down low, and then you can see it kind of slowly goes upward so that she's almost zipped into that sit. And then she gets a reward after she sits. You can see Peach almost jumped up on me before remembering herself and sitting instead. That's why this is such an excellent game to practice, because it teaches dogs to have a little bit of self-control instead of just jumping and going wild when they get excited. Recall. Recall is an awesome activity that burns energy, builds a great bond between you and your dog, and of course teaches an extremely important skill, coming when called. While your dog is off leash, call them and be really fun and exciting about it. Make them want to come to you. As Peach comes to me, I start my hand down low as I do the hand signal for sit. This helps her rein in that enthusiasm from running to me and sit instead of jumping on me, which is great self-control. I really like to gush when it comes to rewarding recall since it's such an important behavior. I give Peach lots of little treats, and then as you can see I give her lots of disgusting mushy love before telling her that she can go play again. As you can see here, Peach didn't come right away when I called her, so instead of repeating something that didn't work, I'm going to make it easier on her by coming closer. Then I get her attention, and as you can see, I do this little backing away motion while I coax her with my hands. This really makes it exciting for her to run to me, and then of course I do the same zip into a sit, just like we did the first time. This time when I reward her, I give her lots of little tiny treats while also praising her to really let her know that she did a good job. Leave it. I prefer to teach leave it as more of an impulse control activity than a command. I do this by not telling the dog anything, but instead waiting for them to figure out what works to earn them the treats they want and blocking their access to them when they're not doing what I want. This is an excellent brain game and really helps excitable dogs calm down and focus. Put a handful of treats in your closed hand right in front of your dog's face. You want to keep your hand still and simply ignore any kind of pushy behavior like this. The only reason I got up here is because Peach jumped up on me and I don't want to encourage that. But any kind of licking, pawing, whatever, you're just going to ignore and keep your hand still. Right here is actually where you would want to reward a dog who is brand new to this game, because as you can see, Peach went over and nosed my hand but then moved her face away just a little bit. For a new dog, you would say yes and give them a treat right away. Because Peach isn't brand new, I'm actually waiting for eye contact as well. But a dog who's brand new to this, you want to reward any tiny moment of having a little bit of impulse control and less pushiness. Once your dog has mastered leaving food alone in your hand, you can start adjusting this game and putting the food in different areas. Here I put it down on the bench right at Peach's face level, which is a little bit harder. And I'm simply covering it up if she tries to go for the food, and then as long as she leaves it alone, I hand it to her one piece at a time. Notice I'm not letting her take it off of the bench here, I'm handing it to her one piece at a time. That way she knows that I have to give it to her, it's not something that she gets to take. And of course, she's going to start offering me eye contact, which is a nice way to advance the game. Exploration walk. Exploration and sniffing is a wonderful enrichment activity for dogs. It gives them a chance to take in all the sights, sounds, and smells without feeling too pressured to behave a certain way. This is different than our leash walking work from earlier, where we wanted them to focus on us and walk by our side. In this activity, I let the dog choose where we go, within reason, and how long we check out a certain area. The only manners I worry about is pulling, so I do stop walking if the dog has a tight leash. This is because if the dog is just chugging along quickly, that means they are not relaxed, and like I mentioned before, a tight leash creates tension and stress. The goal of this activity is for your dog to relax and learn to stop and smell the roses. So Peach is just sniffing along. We have a nice slack leash. She's just enjoying herself. She wants to go back, she can go back. She checked in, so I gave her a little praise and a treat because focus never hurt anybody, but it's not necessary for us to continue to walk. And here we're going to stop and let her sniff as long as she likes. Treat snuffling. This activity is super simple. All you do is toss some treats on the ground and let your dog hunt them down. Dogs are very nose-oriented creatures, so sniffing out food is great enrichment for them. It's also a nice relaxing activity. So I tell Domino to go get it and just toss those treats right on the ground and let her just take her time and nose them out at her own pace. I really try not to just point them out to the dogs because the whole point is for them to nose them out and find them themselves, which is the fun part. The only time I would point them out is the dog just seems totally confused and stares at you. Troubleshooting. Issue number 1. Dog is constantly scanning and worried about their surroundings, may be unwilling to move. This can happen in dogs with anxiety, and it's exacerbated by them not being given the time to just take it all in. Patience is really the key here. If your dog is worried, then it helps to let them take their time and not be rushed along. I would like to use a lot of praise and moral support here to let your dog know that you're there for them and everything is okay. So I'm just letting Peach stop and look around. Just take in her environment. And when she does start moving, I really talk to her and reward her a lot. Let her look some more.
Sweeps. Yeah, what a good girl,
And
Peachy.
reward her for coming with
Who's
me
that
again.
goodest girl? Good girl. Yeah, good girl. Yes, good girl.
So just giving her moral support here. She looks around. She's a little bit worried, so I just want to tell her she's okay. And steering wheel, so I tried to coax her along with me, but she didn't come, so I just gave her some more time and talked to her a little bit.
Hi, baby.
Then when she did start
Yeah,
turning to me, I
yeah, right,
really
good
made a big
girl.
fuss about it, and you can see I walked her away as I talked to her and rewarded her with treats.
Good. You walk this way now? Not so alert. Yeah, it's a good girl.
Issue number 2, reactivity. Reactivity is when dogs bark and sometimes lunge towards things like other dogs or strangers. It generally happens when dogs are on leash or behind fences because these barriers create a lot of frustration. Reactivity is often mistaken for aggression, but that's not necessarily the reason. Some dogs are reactive out of frustration, fear, or excitement. To begin treating reactivity, you want to first start with space. If the dog you're working with is barking or lunging, then that means they are too close to their trigger, the thing that upsets them. Move far enough away so that your dog notices the trigger but is not reacting. From there, you want to reward your dog for every second they look at the trigger. A clicker is highly recommended here because you need to be precise. The moment you see your dog look at the trigger, immediately click the clicker or say yes if you don't have one in your hand. Then give them a very high-value treat reward. Repeat this every single time your dog looks at that trigger. Give them lots of praise too. If they do react, bark or lunge, don't scold them. Just coax them along as you walk away to give them more space. Keep your session short, no more than 5 to 10 minutes before giving them a break away from the trigger. This activity will do 2 things to help your dog overcome their reactivity. 1, reward them for nice, calm reactions and therefore teach them a better way to react to things that bother them. And 2, create a good association with the trigger so that in time they will see its appearance as a good thing instead of a bad thing. This is a big reason why you don't want to scold or punish your dog for reacting. We're working on changing their emotional state, and that won't happen if bad things happen when the trigger is around. So up ahead are some kids playing that Peach had barked at just before we turned on the camera. So here I am clicking every time she looks their way and going ahead and giving her a treat as well as lots and lots of praise. You can see her start to relax just a little bit here. She starts looking around at other things and is less hyper-focused on the kids. Here you can see she actually physically turns her body away from them and more towards me, which again shows that she is getting less worried about them and more interested in just getting some treats. I'm still waiting for her to look back at them before rewarding her though, because that is the name of the game. Here they've gotten far enough away that she really doesn't care anymore, and she just stares at me and wags her tail, so I just give her some love and attention for a job well done. Issue number 3, fence running. Fence running is another form of reactivity that happens when a dog is off-leash in a fenced area and there's something on the other side of the fence that upsets them. You can treat this the same way as when they're on leash, but what do you do if your dog is off-leash and suddenly reacts to something? You'll need to catch them before you can get them back on leash, and that can sometimes be tricky. Here Peach was startled by hearing the kids on the other side of the fence playing, and she starts getting herself all worked up running the fence line.
Okay.
I talked to her in a gentle voice to help not add to that excitement and let her know that everything's okay and she can just calm down.
Good
Here,
girl.
I stand in her way and put a treat right in front of her, and luckily she takes the bait and she takes it, so now I can start rewarding her a little bit. She does run off again a little bit, but you can see she's not quite as worked up as before.
Good girl.
So here again I reward her for checking in. That was fantastic that she came back and looked at me. And now she's getting a little calmer. You can see that mohawk is still up, but it's not quite as bad as before. Now she's coming back to check in again. And I threw those treats on the ground to do that treat snuffling game to help distract her and calm her back down. Goes and barks again. Again, I'm not scolding her because that would only add to her reactivity. She probably thinks you're just barking right with her. I even had her sit here, which she did a great job of, and that really helped kind of end the reactivity for her. If your dog doesn't sit, don't push it. If you ask him to sit and they don't, then that's that. I really just did it as a test to see if she was calm enough, but if she didn't sit, then she wasn't calm enough. Now we can get her back on leash so that that doesn't happen again. Issue number 4, leash biting. Leash biting usually happens when a dog gets excited and thinks that the leash looks like an awesome tug toy. This is generally a playful, if unwanted, behavior, but can also sometimes happen when a dog is frustrated or upset at something and redirects that frustration onto the leash simply because it's within reach. You can manage this by walking the dog on a chain leash. Keep in mind that the chain does not go around the dog's neck, it is just the leash itself. And you can teach your dog not to jump and grab things with the tug manners we went over earlier in the video. So I kind of egged Peach on a little bit here to get her excited. She obliged and grabbed the leash to play with it. I went kind of stiff and boring, and then I just tossed some treats on the ground to make it more fun to grab the treats than the leash. And that worked out that time. She went ahead and went for the treats, and then I continued to reward her for not grabbing the leash as I kind of wiggled it around in her face. So I'm using the clicker here to mark her for not grabbing the leash and rewarding her for it. So this time you'll see Peach gets much more into it. She's really tugging away and she's super excited. I try the treats again and she says, "No thanks, I'd rather keep tugging." I do go ahead and toss them on the ground though, so that she'll hopefully get some interest at some point. I'm going to try to step on the leash here, but she went swinging around with it, so I had to kind of do a little pirouette there to make sure I didn't kick her in the face accidentally, which I did not want to do. So she keeps tugging. I'm going to keep the leash kind of short against my legs to again make it less interesting, then toss some more treats on the ground. So here we go. We got her to stop that time, so it took a little bit more effort this time, and now I'm able to step on the leash. This makes it shorter and less interesting to play and tug with. And then she's kind of over it. She's just calmed right back down. So we just needed to bring her energy level down a little bit, and she's good. Okay, enough work. Time for some love. Okay, that's all the training games for today. We're going to end the video with some super mushy love time with Sweet Peach here. She is available at the Williamson County Regional Animal Shelter if you would like to adopt this sweet pup. Happy training!